Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. We are back with the lads, and it is Riyadh season, Wembley edition. Boys, we're going to Wembley, man.
I cannot wait for this one. Absolutely buzzing. Mental.
What we're doing. Where the hell is this going, man? Honestly, 96,000 are going to be there for Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. And we are going to unpack this as best we can today. Now, one interesting development, lads, is that there's been a lot of speculation about this sparring session that occurred years ago. And Daniel Dubois has been talking for a long time about scrambling AJ. But obviously, sparring, and often both fighters will have a totally different recollection of it. Well, as it happens, one bloke who claimed to be there at the time, Anthony Fowler, who was on Team GB, said that Joshua was caught with a short left hook. His legs completely went. Dubois could have hit him again and put him to sleep, but Dubois had too much respect for him to finish him off. Joshua's legs went like jelly, and he wanted to carry on, but Rob McCracken was like, have a break, get your legs back, AJ. And then they continued. Dubois could have hit him again and knocked him out, but he chose not to out of respect. Now we've got someone to actually give us a little bit of, their story of their view, what happened. What do you make of that, lads? I mean, Loza, you were on Team GB once upon a time. Do you think that's likely to be true?
I would believe Fowler because Fowler was on the squad the same time as me. I've been all over the world with Fowler, and he's a straight talking guy, and he wouldn't lie because he's friends with AJ as well. I would say he's probably more friends with AJ than he is Dubois. So there's definitely truth in it. And I would also say with AJ, most of the time when I watch him spar, he was always at 50, 60% because most of his sparring partners couldn't stay with him. And that's including the likes of Joe Joyce. He was a lot more experienced and he was just better at competing at that level at that time. And most of the people that he sparred with, his coach Rob McCracken would say, Joshua, just, bring it down to like 60%, keep the power down. And quite often, AJ would half switch off and he would get caught. Every spar, he'd had a bloody nose. It was almost like he wouldn't always switch on unless he had really good guys in front of him. And at the time, I know Dubois would have only been quite young, so he probably wasn't fully concentrating. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got clipped because he is a bit lazy in sparring when he hasn't got a real tough opposition in front of him. So it didn't surprise me at all, to be honest.
I love that analysis there from Team GB's own Lawrence Oswegi. We got it behind the scenes. I love it. KG, you said that you hadn't heard that quote. What's your immediate reaction?
I've never heard that quote before, man. But then we got to remember we talk about the Black Lives Matter knee that he took in the last fight. He's very considerate. Daniel Dubois is going to be considerate at a lot of moments in fights. And when as soon as you said he didn't want to finish him off because he just had too much respect for him, I thought, that sounds like something Dubois could do. That does sound like a Dubois move, Dubois is the same man that told us in the ring that he felt discouraged when he got hit, when the referee didn't count the way he expected him to count. When he gave it a low blow and stuff, he said he felt discouraged in that fight and that took everything away from him. This is on brand. This is literally on brand for him. But then there's a piece in there that kind of AJ in the face off, AJ mentioned, he said, what happened in sparring? Yeah. He called him out. He said, what happened in sparring? And I found that interesting because you don't do that unless you have something on the guy. You don't play that. You don't throw that.
You know where I went with this one? Sorry to interrupt, but when I heard that, right, now we've got all of the context, right? We've got Fowler's account. We've heard what AJ obviously put to Dubois when he said what happened in sparring. And we've also got the back catalogue of multiple times Daniel Dubois has spoke about the incident. And a lot of the time, what he's done is actually just agreed with what the interviewer has said. I can think of a couple of different clips when I've seen interviewers and they've said, the word has it that you knocked AJ out in sparring. Is there any truth to that? And he said, yeah, there's definitely truth to that. So what I think has happened here is Anthony Fowler's account is right, which means that in a roundabout way, Daniel Dubois has lied about sparring, because when an interviewer has said, word has it, you knocked AJ out, what an interviewer could have said for Daniel Dubois to agree would be, word has it, you wobbled him, you could have finished the job there, but you chose not to. Yes. And that isn't what they said. So in some way, Daniel Dubois has been somewhat dishonest about the sparring, but at the same time.
But then this is the thing though, we have to remember with Daniel Dubois, there's a lot of times when the communication's happening, and I don't think he's like not in the nicest way of saying it. He's not in the room at some of
the
it.
The lights are on, but no one's home.
And, yes, he's not in the room. So he's like, the moment.
We might have to see this guy at Wembley, lads. Let's be very nice.
No, I'm already in trouble with Don Charles and everything already, and there's so much we've got to talk about today. But then I think.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. All right, this was a while back, right? And 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer even. What impact will that have on this fight? Because I would have assumed that when Daniel Dubois steps through those ropes with him, he'll know, right? And it's a real fucking fight now. It ain't sparring. But equally, if you scrambled someone like that, surely that's going to give Daniel some confidence.
Mate, if you've hurt someone, you will always believe that you can hurt them. And I'm telling you this now, right? If I was drawing confidence off of the fact that I had completely outboxed this guy 7-8 years ago, but then I had seen what he had gone on to do, then I think that in a way could be false confidence. I think that might not serve me well, having that as something in my head to think 7-8 years ago, I completely outboxed you. That's different. Hurting someone is another thing, because although a fighter can improve their skill set over time, ultimately you don't really improve your chin. You don't really improve your powers of recovery. You can make it seem like you've improved it by improving your skill set enough that it's harder to hit that chin. But if Daniel Dubois is confident that he can land on Anthony Joshua, having hurt him in the past, he will feel like he has the ability to do so again.
But can I just say though, I think this is where the rule changes at heavyweight, because that generally I would agree, but I've literally been all over the world with GB, with boxing. And, when it comes to heavyweights getting hurt, it's a regular occurrence. In every other division, not so much. It does happen, don't get me wrong. But with heavyweights, they can all punch and they can all be hurt. And when Dubois was on the squad with AJ, the chances are that probably AJ, well, like I said, was taking his time, probably helping Dubois out. And he's probably not been fully concentrated and got clipped. And it's kind of, he would have been on GB at the time, and AJ was obviously on the squad, or he might have been pro at the time. So they're kind of mates who would have been working together. The rule is if you clip someone, you stand off. I just don't think him being clipped has that much of an impact, because it's normal in heavyweight division.
I'm going to disagree with you there, just only on the basis of what has been Daniel Dubois' probably Achilles heel. And they always talk about belief system, limiting beliefs in the ring, not being able to, everyone, they're talking to him. You can hear us, everyone in the family, 3 people in the corner. You can do it. Keep going, son. You got this. And they've always had to talk him up. That's one of the reasons why they threw him against Big Baby Miller, because Big Baby Miller has this ability to strip that confidence away from you with talk. One thing he's going to do, and you saw him trying to do it in the face-off. They gave us little glimpses. You see when he's like, you can't intimidate me. The first time he said it, it's due to him being intimidated in the moment. Then he's almost trying to believe it, like, no, you can't do this to me. I'm not going to let you do this to me. He almost kind of rose in that moment. He went where AJ was. AJ was already at, I'll stand up and I'll smack this chair across your face. AJ was already there, and this guy has to believe that I am ready for this moment. He's walking out 96,000. A lot of people watching. He needs to believe, and he needs that. I think he needed that.
On the face-off, lads, I found it interesting that Ade Oladipo gave his account of what it was like being in the room with these two monsters breathing.
I haven't seen that yet.
Breathing fire at each other. So he said that after it kicked off, you see AJ sat down, and he was mean mugging him. He was giving him the look and that, but he was calm. Whereas he said Daniel Dubois took a long time to calm down. He says he said, I'm telling you now, if there was no one there, that man was ready to fight right there and then. And he was like really ready to go. So, I don't know. I felt like Daniel, despite AJ sort of bossing that situation in a way with his language, I think Daniel held his own as best as he could, given that he is the young lion and AJ is very much still king.
But that's the point. That's the real point I'm really making there, because it's like AJ was in control in that whole moment, and Daniel Dubois rose to the moment. See, he didn't look bad in that moment. He just, again, I don't think he came there with that level. He didn't realize that was going to happen, and he was caught out at times. When AJ said to him, look, you was in Brazil, I knew he was doing in Brazil. There was a lot of stuff there that he's thinking.
Have you heard what that rumor is?
It's a disgusting rumor. It's nasty work.
Well, I mean, Brazil's famous for certain medication, shall we say. I don't know how true that is.
And VADA can't get there. It's not as simple to get there. The notice that they have to do, the visa that they have to do to get in. So it's a nasty rumor. I don't think it's horrible. I don't think it's fair, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, fair play. And let's talk about the last two performances from them, because they've both had a bit of a bumpy ride in terms of performances prior to that, but both have come off the back of two great wins each. Who are you more impressed by in those fights? Because I think a lot of people would say Dubois fought the more acclaimed fighters, but AJ got a lot of praise as well.
I think that AJ has actually, the obvious answer here is obviously to say Daniel Dubois. No one can tell me that Francis Ngannou and Otto Wallin aren't or are a better standard than the likes of Big Baby Miller and Hrgović. Now, the Big Baby Miller win for Daniel Dubois has actually aged even better, because we've now gone in there and, in my opinion, seen him over the distance beat Andy Ruiz, although he didn't get the decision on the night. However, the question marks that surrounded Daniel Dubois haven't been answered as much in those two fights as the question marks that surrounded Anthony Joshua for me. With Anthony Joshua, the question was, can we see him get back to his best, where he's putting shots together in combinations, being ferocious, and actually not having any fear at all to pull the trigger on his opponents, as he seemed to against Franklin, and as he did seem to until the knockout came against Helenius. So it's obviously good when we see him against the Otto Wallin and against the Francis Ngannou, actually thinking, do you know what? I'm going to go back to the old destroyer version of AJ. And in doing so, he's answered a lot more of our questions than Daniel Dubois has. Daniel Dubois, despite being so impressive in those two performances, is yet to have a crisis moment. And our main question over Daniel Dubois has always been, can he come through the crisis moment that he had with the likes of Joe Joyce and that he had with the likes of Alexander Usyk? Now, we're speaking about those two fights in particular, but actually, for me personally, a man who probably gives Daniel Dubois maybe the highest percentage chance out of all of us here, I have seen Daniel Dubois come through that crisis moment against Kevin Lerena when he was dropped a couple of times early on in that fight, came back to stop him. The only slight difference there is Lerena is not of any sort of standard in comparison to the two guys he was in there with in Hrgović and Big Baby Miller. So although he had the ability to eat those shots from Hrgović and to come on strong, you can always look at it from the other side and go, but you took those shots. And it's one thing taking those shots. Can I give you a counter argument, bro? Because
I think you made great points there. And on the one hand, I do agree with a lot of what you said, but my worry when we're trying to predict this fight is, are we getting a false reading? Because what you've already accepted is Daniel Dubois was in there with a live dog in Big Baby Miller, who's going to come forward all night, and he's a 300+ pound man with a head the size of a house. Then you've got the Hrgović, who's really highly ranked and was expected to win that fight, and did throw God knows how many right hands and did land them. So he was facing resistance from the get-go. Now, you could argue that in Otto Wallin's severe lack of power and lack of offense against Anthony Joshua, who, I mean, Otto Wallin looked so timid in that fight. At least with Hrgović and Big Baby, there was a form of resistance. With Otto Wallin's lack of power, there was a major weakness there. And I think with Francis Ngannou's lack of technical ability and ring IQ, boxing IQ, there was another major weakness there. In both of those fights, Anthony Joshua had very clear and direct routes to victory, whereas Daniel Dubois didn't have those. He really had to overcome something. So is it possible, lads, that when we're going Anthony Joshua as a changed man, I mean, Ben Davison, it's unbelievable what he's done. We're looking at two fights that were tailor-made to make Anthony Joshua look great, and we're getting a false reading. And when there is a live dog in front of AJ again, as you know, maybe he may not look quite as perfect.
Well,
I agree with you there. I totally agree, because, like you've just said, I think them fights were tailor-made for AJ. And yes, you know, it's really difficult because you can only fight who's in front of you, but them stylistically were both perfect for AJ. And I do think Daniel Dubois, for me, he did show that he can get through a crisis, because I don't care about the technical ability of Big Baby Miller. He's a big guy, and the way he comes forward, the size of me, his strength. And I think that was a much bigger test than the likes of Otto Wallen, and Francis Ngannou, without doubt. And like we say, Hrgovic was a great amateur, like a world-class amateur, massive prospect in the pro division when he come through. He hasn't really reached the heights we thought he would, but I think technically, like, he's a far better fighter than obviously we know with Ngannou, and definitely Otto Wallen. So for me, I think, like, I'm an AJ fan, don't get me wrong. So, you know, I want to give him all the credit, but realistically, we can't really say from AJ's last two performances. Like, you can kind of analyze his mental state, and he does seem like he's in a better place. But until we see him in there with a real live dog, we just don't know. I would give all the credit in this situation to Daniel Dubois, without doubt.
Do you know where it's different, and the planning for each fighter? There was strategies made up. Eddie Hearn is very clear on the strategy they have for AJ, which is three-time world champion. They planned this route. When you actually look at the route now and where he's gone from the Usyk fight, you got Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin was a live opponent against Dillian White. Looked like he gave Dillian White some trouble, so he said, you know what, that's a good fight. In my eyes, I think Jermaine Franklin kind of won that fight, so it made sense. But then after, this is the same time when I think with the Jermaine Franklin one, he was still on the looking for the different trainer. He hadn't joined Ben Davison by then, had he? He wasn't with Ben Davison, was he?
No, I don't think so. He's only been with Ben the last two fights, mate.
There you go. So then after is Robert Helenius, and this is AJ still trying to fix his team. He had Angel Fernandez. He had all these voices in his corner, and his corner was a bit of the issue. But not only the corner, I think what AJ was struggling with is AJ became gun shy. AJ became, I wouldn't say like afraid to get hurt, but then the scars of maybe Ruiz, the scars of how he got knocked out against, how he hit the ground against Klitschko back in the day, all those things, and then what Fury did, the mind games that Fury played, where he called him a bodybuilder, told him you're not a real punch. He basically kind of broke AJ down, that AJ wanted to change into something else. The mixture, joining Ben Davison was probably one of the smartest moves, because Ben Davison almost resurrected, well, we can say he resurrected Fury, and it was the mental fortitude that he needed. And now we're seeing AJ go in there and clean them out, because AJ it's not about the competition, it's about what AJ's feeling inside himself. And both of these guys, I would say, have had these, well, you could say one guy's been gun shy, another guy's had these mental blocks, but both of them can be very dangerous. If now, when I speak about Dubois, his big thing was, well, he just he wasn't an animal. I always felt about Dubois that his parents and everybody else wanted this for him, and he just been blessed with these gifts, but does he really want to box? In the Helenius one, he proved it for sure. It was no longer, it wasn't
in the Hrgovic fight.
Hrgovic. In the Hrgovic one, he said, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to fight. I'm in this thing. It's different from when I fall, it's different from when I've taken the knee, or it's different from the Usyk one where he took the fight out of me. I now want to do this thing. I don't think one is not fair. The Big Baby Miller one, we have to almost put an asterisk to that, because let's be fair, Big Baby took that on short notice, and Big Baby went in the best of shape. Now, if he fought the Big Baby that fought his last fight, in the Big Baby that fought Ruiz, that would be a better telling. It would be a better telling of where Dubois is. So
Big Baby only got in that sort of shape because he had a moment where he was woken up almost by the defeat to Daniel Dubois. But the way we credit Ben Davison's work with Anthony Joshua, we also need to credit the job that Don Charles has done with Daniel Dubois, because I think that the job that Don Charles has done with Daniel Dubois, from not only a technical but also a psychological point, has almost gone under the radar somewhat, man. Like, you spoke about the Hrgovic one there and how much the Hrgovic one impressed you. Who called for that fight? Daniel Dubois. There's a video of Daniel Dubois hitting the bag in the gym. He turns round and calls for the Filip Hrgović fight. And listen, I'm not saying when he was with Martin Bowers, or I think when he was with Shane McGuigan, or whoever he was with at the time, he didn't have that inner confidence. But personally, I think that this is the most confident version of Daniel Dubois. And I credit the training team around him, having Don Charles around him, as a huge part of that. And not only that, something that we had touched on before, Don Charles credits himself, as we know from having personal chats with him, as a man that has inside information on Anthony Joshua.
I was going to drop a bomb for you, bro. I almost hit the button there as well. But then
that's about the conversation.
What did he say, Don Charles, to you, KG, about the insider knowledge of AJ?
He said he was there first. He got there first. He was there before anyone else was there. He speaks about pretty much kind of being, cast aside, really. And he's been cast aside. That's the topic of a lot of fighters say, that Don Charles is cast aside. He finds talent. He nurtures the talent, and he's pulled out. But then what he is saying is, I know what AJ doesn't like. And this is where, when you talk about, how does Dubois win this fight, right? We look at the last fight Coley had with Billum Smith. Yeah. And one thing they did on point, one thing that was really good, was they alerted the referee to the hugging. Billum was hugging. There was nothing they could do about it. The corner was clever. They both went in there, and as soon as he hugged, they were like, referee, this, that. They were both doing it, but then the inside knowledge. And then one thing that I know that AJ, no fighter really likes this, is the dark arts, the use of the shoulder, the use of the headbutt. And in that Hrgović, you lot were saying, how come they haven't given a points deduction? How come they haven't stopped any of the nastier stuff that Dubois is doing? And for Dubois to win this fight, for Dubois to get something in this fight, he has to almost Takam, he has to take that Takam thing to AJ, where he gets
ain't getting away with none of that. He ain't getting away with none of that.
He must try.
Not at Wembley.
I know he might not be able to get away with it at Wembley, but then listen to what Frank Warren said. One man's going to establish the jab early, and it's for the other fighter to work his way around dealing with that jab. We know that AJ is going to establish the jab. Hrgović popped off those shots. Now Hrgović is faster than AJ, but AJ is very direct with that. And the one thing, while I'm trying to give Dubois all of these pickups and stuff and say this is where he could do it, if he's gone down 3 times in the first round to Lorena, yeah, brother, when AJ lands, if he lands any of those Hrgović shots, I'm telling you now, we might as well enjoy the undercard, because this is going to be a very big flight.
You're getting all the way to the conclusion, right?
Bro. I'm just saying.
No, just to revise it though, we actually had a cameraman at ringside, shout out to Kent, who was filming that Hrgović Dubois fight. And when we looked at the footage the next morning, the brutality of it, the violence of it, it was roughhouse tactics, and there is no way I don't see Dubois trying it.
He must.
I think the thing is with AJ, the thing I really admired about AJ's state of mind in that Wallen fight and the Ngannou fight was the calmness. He was so composed and clinical. He was like, Erling Haaland in his prime. You know what I mean? It was like very calm. And the last thing you want is Anthony Joshua calm. You want him panicked. You want him frantic. You want to rough him up. And Dubois is a big old strong boy, right? He can definitely try and do that. And I do think that's part of the tactics, without a doubt. And when it comes to establishing the jab, Dubois got a fucking good jab himself. It's just, it's up here for me. It's not about the athleticism with Dubois. The thing I also remember in watching the footage back, because we obviously had a ringside microphone as well, is the coaches of Dubois, it felt like they were almost having to remind him of things so regularly. Like their voices were the remote control, and he was needing just constant reminding, go first, get the jab out, double the jab up. Like, it wasn't like they trusted him to be able to think on his own inside that boxing ring. And ultimately, through speaking to Joy at times, knowing, your coach can only tell you so much, but you have to be reacting in the moment. And if there's one thing we do know AJ can do, it's that. And I just worry that, in taking too long to process things and taking too long to switch on in there, that could also cause problems for Dubois.
I think
I agree, because, go on, Joey, I'll let you go.
Also, what I would say there, just touching on that, I know from first-hand experience in this training camp, I've been doing a lot of sparring with a Polish pro, right? And I am so much quicker to follow the instructions of my coach in the corner when I know that I'm in there with someone that has a language barrier with me. Now, this guy that I'm sparring with, he can speak English probably to about the same degree as a man that I've also met in Filip Hrgović and had conversations with. They probably speak about the same level of English, and they're as comfortable in it. And I am so much less cautious to go against the advice, because sometimes you're always thinking in the ring, when you hear this advice from your corner, you're thinking, yeah, well, I'm not going to do it straight away because he's just heard you say that as well as I've heard you say it. And I know you can go, okay, well, you know, you're only listening out for your own coach, but I hear what the other coach says to the fighter that I'm sparring with or fighting. So I think that will benefit him as well from that aspect. But one point I just want to touch on with Hrgović, and this is something that not a lot of people have said here. When someone loses, and I'm not accusing us of doing this, but we're very quick sometimes to rubbish that person and to almost dismiss some of the attributes they have. And we've all made the point, myself included, that the delivery of Anthony Joshua is superior to Hrgović. And if Hrgović is finding you with those right hands, Anthony Joshua will find you with them too. But we're ignoring something here. I believe that the chin of Filip Hrgović is better, stonewall better than the chin of Anthony Joshua. So when you look at the shots that Filip Hrgović was able to stand up to, I do think that Daniel Dubois will take a little bit of confidence in thinking, okay, those same shots that I delivered on Hrgović, if I put them on you, you might not fare as well as Hrgović fared to those shots.
Based on what you've just said there, I mean, when you look back at the Zhile Zhang fight against Hrgović, although he got dropped, he fared a lot better throughout the fight than what he did against Dubois. The thing about Dubois that I think is his superpower in this fight is his ability to consistently throw punches all night long. And they're thudding hard punches. Stamina-wise, we've seen AJ's need to take a few rounds here and there just to decrease the output a little bit, recharge, and then go again later. We've seen it against we've seen it against Klitschko, for Christ's sake. We've seen it in Pulev even. So that there has been moments, whereas the consistent output from Dubois really impresses me. And if you can avoid that, the punishment from AJ early on, those big right hands, or if he can withstand it, and it becomes more of a grueling, drag him out fight, that's where Dubois could have some success, in my opinion.
Well, AJ's ending his fights even in his heyday, I'd say 7 rounds early. You remember you get into AJ fight and be like, oh, that was fun. Like, we got home, the trains are still running, things are great, you know. He's one of those guys that can just get it finished quickly. Now, where it gets nervy, this is the only time I could say it gets nervy. If we're in the 8th, 9th, and Dubois still in there, believing, hey, now we're in no man's land. Because the last thing that as an AJ fan, I'm saying, the last thing I really need is Dubois in there believing in his power, believing in that he can hurt this man, believing that I've got this. And that's where AJ is. Obviously the rabbit punches, we always have to be aware of that coming. And that's why I feel that it's in AJ's best interest for him to get it done early. You don't want to take him to the late rounds. Even though he can recover in the late rounds, I just don't think that's the wisest thing. Another piece that I feel where Dubois is at some level of misfortune is he's got 3 men in his corner. When we was at the fight in Riyadh, I remember sitting kind of close to Turkey, right? His Excellency, right? They were sitting right there and he was shouting a lot. And His Excellency was like, sit down. Obviously, he ain't got the contract, but then his dad wanted to be closer and he was told like, well, that's not your role. Come and sit here. Now that voice goes into the corner similar to what Fury had in his corner. Fury had too many voices in the corner, and I think it hurt his performance against Usyk, having that many voices. And you have to choose now. I don't know, Joe, if you've ever had, Lawrence, if you ever had 3 people very vocal in your corner, which one do you listen to? I think his dad's such an important voice in his life. Maybe he'll take that one more important than the Don Charles one. There could be something there that we have to be aware of when we get to hear it.
It's a difficult one. I think, me personally, I only want to hear one person's voice, and too many voices, and generally too many chefs spoil the broth. I think it is a massive downfall. We're seeing that with Tyson Fury, how that worked out for him. Also, having, we had Sugar Hill, John Fury all shouting in the corner. I think there was too much confusion. But just going back to, in general with Daniel Dubois, we'll talk about his engine. I do think he's got a great engine, and, also with regards to the roughhouse tactics, I think that's a must for him because, like you said, we can't allow AJ to get into a rhythm and give him time. But also with that, in the fight against Hrgović, I do think Daniel Dubois was kind of the favourite in that fight. So they kind of let them roughhouse tactics go ahead. But against AJ, he's not going to be the favourite. So all them tactics, it's not going to be allowed. It's going to be broken up every time. He's going to be warned if he's using his head. And I just think with regards to his engine, it is good. But if you're seeing against the Hrgović, we're seeing against Miller, he's consistently busy and he's throwing punches, but he gets very sloppy. His weight's over his front foot. He's kind of leaning forward. His elbows are flared. AJ's got one of the best uppercuts in the heavyweight division, and he's got serious power. And even when AJ's tired, he's very sharp with his punches. He never gets ragged. He's much better at kind of managing what shots he can throw. In general, I know in the past we've seen him kind of look sloppy, but AJ's a different animal now, and he's a lot more intelligent, and he won't be wasting his shots. And I just think with Dubois, his engine, and he's like the fact that he doesn't hesitate and he just bulldozes forward, I think it can kind of be a massive plus. But against AJ, I think it could be his massive downfall. I think his engine and his ability to just keep punching, I think it'll be his downfall because he can't make the mistakes he was making against a Hrgović. And I know you mentioned there before, KG, that Hrgović is quicker than AJ. I disagree with that completely. I think AJ's hand speed is second to none against most of the heavyweights in the division, especially with his combination punching. So yeah, I'm just not too sure. I think Dubois, I hate to say it, I think he makes too many mistakes, and if he is allowed to get away with his roughhouse tactics, he has a chance. But I just think on the way in, he's going to walk onto a big shot. I just can't see anything other than AJ's just landing. He's just too accurate with his shots.
I feel like we're all aware exactly what you mean there, mate. Like that, if he does get sloppy, he will be punished for it. I feel like if you're a part of Team Dubois, you've kind of got to hope that you can push the pace so hard and force AJ to sprint in a way that he's not comfortable doing so, and make it a war of attrition, basically, and force that. And you got to gamble in the process. One question I've got for you lads, because you're all, you've watched AJ from day one. Right now, where would you rank Daniel Dubois as we're looking at him currently, not previous versions of him right now? Where would you rank him amongst AJ's previous opponents? How high up does he go? Maybe the easier question might be, how many people would you put above him?
I would have him personally in the top 3 of opponents that AJ has boxed at the moment. So I think that you listen.
Are you talking ever? Yeah. Are you talking just in?
That's what we're saying.
I'd add this version of Daniel Dubois in the top 3. Remember, it's always about the version you get of the fighter in front of you. It's not about the name of the fighter. No one can tell me that coming off the back of an 18-month layoff and a loss to Tyson Fury, that was the best version of Vladimir Klitschko. Povetkin. I think if Anthony Joshua had fought Povetkin 4-5 years prior, it would have been a prime Povetkin. But at that time, it wasn't the best version of him. Now, when I say this sounds like I'm discrediting the wins, and I'm really not doing that. But what I'm saying is, at the moment, I believe 28 years of age, maybe 27 years of age.
27 just turned out.
27 years of age. This is the best version of Daniel Dubois that we've seen to this point. I don't even write off the possibility that Daniel Dubois gets better. So, with that being said, for me, I would say in terms of Anthony Joshua's opponents, you have to go Usyk number 1. I think you would still then go with Klitschko number 2, and that means that I would then put this version of Daniel Dubois above the version of Joseph Parker that he boxed, obviously the British title fight against Dillian Whyte. I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone here. Can anyone tell me that I'm missing someone?
Andy Ruiz.
And
yes, and I think in hindsight, Andy Ruiz is one you'd put in there. But let me tell you something about Andy Ruiz, KG. Tell me, before he fought Anthony Joshua and before he got that win, who was his best win?
Doesn't matter though, because Andy Ruiz left scars on AJ. AJ went down twice in the... KG.
Then, do you know what? Okay, don't even tell me his best win. Just give me a good one. Give me a good Andy Ruiz win before Andy Joshua.
I think just to interject, the point is valid though in regards to Andy Ruiz was able to do that, and Daniel Dubois is showing great signs right now. And ironically, I was wondering, but you mentioned him, is there a potential for AJ to get clipped, through the level of power he's got in overcommitting? Because one thing I do like about Daniel Dubois is he just constantly throws. You know what I mean? He doesn't back off.
The only thing with that though is what Lawrence is saying. AJ's timing is phenomenal, and they're setting that stuff up. I predict AJ's I just on a quick prediction of how I see him doing it.
He can't
just on a quick one. I just have to say this quickly before we get into the levels of who he's fought. It's the same punch he gave to Ngannou. He's going to walk into it. He's going to walk into severe problems. Now, where you rank this one, when he tried to rank Dubois, and this is what I said to Don Charles, which I was quite surprised that he was the way he was. Yeah. It's too soon.
Can I just be clear? KG went to the coach of Daniel Dubois and told him to his face, your boy's getting knocked out.
The whole team. Not just
it's the same energy, no matter where we are with KG. In Saudi, doesn't matter.
Yes. I think he was there. Wait, hold on. Lawrence, was it?
That's what I'm saying.
He was there, and Lawrence was like,
I was stood next to you. I didn't know where to put myself. I was just like, are you really just saying this to his face?
It's so casual as well, isn't it? Your boy's getting knocked out.
The worst of it was Don Charles was so confident, and the way he was looking into our eyes with, he meant every word he said, and then KG just absolutely said point blank, it's not happening.
This brings us on to a good point, lads. You're saying it's too soon.
Because I know
will age play a factor? Because 27 years old just turned, and AJ nearly 35, I believe 34 currently. The young hungry lion, is that going to help him being the younger guy?
Well,
I don't think it does. I don't think it does, because in general, I would say, age, because what everyone's thinking is that AJ being a little bit older, past his best, but I don't buy that. I don't think he's had that many hard fights in his career, and I think the age factor for Dubois being too young, and I just think he needs more experience. I think Dubois in three years' time is going to be a completely different animal to he is right now. And I just think it is too soon. And he's got so much talent, but I just think he's not ready for AJ. I think AJ right now, like we've said, mentally he's in a great place. He's got so much experience at the highest level. I mean, this is going to have 96,000 people in this stadium. Jesus. Dubois is not going to know what's hit him. Whereas AJ, it's just like a normal routine for him having that many people. He's so used to headlining the fight. So I think it's more of a downfall for Dubois. I think he's got so much potential. I just think just not now. And the fact that he is I just think he's a little bit too one-dimensional. And like I say, it can be a great thing that he doesn't hesitate. He comes forward, lets his hands go. And there is a chance that AJ could get clipped, because without doubt, he's got power, because every sparring partner that you speak to say Dubois' power is like nothing they've ever felt. So there's this argument who punches harder. And I personally think AJ punches harder, and because he's got the speed, and it's the punch you don't see that does the damage. And I also think that's why Hrgović took a lot of Dubois' punches, because he could actually see them coming. I just think the age.
Sorry, because you're saying something that has made me think about, you talk about the crowd, right? We would all agree Tyson Fury is probably one of the most smartest in the ring, one of the most experienced. When he went down to Wilder, even knowing how long to wait to get up, his recovery times is probably one of the most brilliant things, and that's experience. But guess what? We took him out there to Riyadh. He was the first. We took him out to Riyadh, and he had to walk through the Hall of Fame. All of the boxers, everyone outside, everyone was there at that fight. Literally, it was the greatest intro you could have for a fighter. He was in the moment. You got Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield that opens the door. And what does he do? He doesn't even know what to do. He runs into the ring. And we thought, oh, this is a bit bad here. And then the way he fights Ngannou, Fury can beat Ngannou. If there was tomorrow, Fury beats Ngannou. Fury has the experience to beat Ngannou, but the moment was big. The lights were flashing at a different level. And what was next? Now you got to tell me for Dubois, who has I would say mental fragility, but before he gets out there, there's already a camera in his room. He's never going to experience this. The camera's in his room. Oasis, back together. I don't even know if they're back together. It's just one of them. But I'm saying it doesn't get any bigger than this. We felt electric from the Eminem performance. You're there and you're thinking, because there is a moment when, like, I remember when I got my first show for BET. It was my own show, and it's easy when you're saying, when you're a part of an ensemble, when everyone is there for you, you have this moment when you're like, they're all here for me. There's this moment of everybody's here because of me. And that's a different feeling.
He's the champion as well.
Yeah.
He's the champion.
I'm the champion. Everybody is here. I'm going to walk out second. And AJ felt a little bit of that. He's been there to the top, but in the Usyk Tottenham, which felt amazing, he's walking in saying, hey. What do I do here? How do I beat him? Even AJ had to wobble. So it's not to say you've been to the high.
Whoa. Let me jump in then, because just to play devil's advocate.
Go ahead.
Out of the two fighters, who was the overthinker?
AJ without doubt.
Right. So if anyone is going to be thinking at the lowest, no offense, but like if anyone's going to be thinking at the most base level of like, my job is to do this, I actually think Dubois he's an underthinker of anything. His coaches literally have to scream at him to get him to do what they want in the ring. I actually don't feel like that's if Dubois loses this fight, personally, I don't think it's going to be because the moment got to him. I think it's going to be because his technical ability.
You know, when AJ went for the dark room retreat.
Yeah.
Daniel Dubois just lived in that dark room mentally.
Oh, no,
exactly.
No, but then what I hear I hear what you lot are saying, but guess what? I believe he's exercised those demons against Usyk.
What Joey's saying is Dubois doesn't have any demons.
Yeah, no.
He is the demon. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Let's see.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. We'll try and wrap this up because we've been going for a good amount of time, right? I know you are very much leaning AJ. I think that's very clear. So I'm going to ask a couple of final questions.
Yes.
If Dubois does do it,
Jesus,
how do you imagine it to happen? Just out of interest.
The only way I can see it happening is if he clips AJ early. I just think he's going to go in there, bulldozing as he does. That's his best chance. While the referee's just kind of probably giving him warnings for, the dirty tactics. Because, once it gets into the second and third round, he's going to have to start to pull back on the dirty tactics because I'm pretty sure the referee will be on top of it. I think it'll be early. It's funny because actually I think both guys have a better chance early, whichever way you look at it. But I can't really see, like people are saying, that Dubois has a better chance going to the later distance. I just think AJ is so experienced. I think when the way I look at it is, Dubois still yet to gain experience. And whatever you say about AJ, he's been in there with every style as an amateur and as a pro. And I just think we were talking earlier on where do we put Dubois on AJ's list. That's the point. AJ's been in there with so many good guys. I just think Dubois will be bringing nothing that AJ's just not seen before. That's just the way I see it.
Okay.
I personally would say that if Dubois gets this done, he gets it done between rounds 6-9, I would say. I think that we've seen in fights gone by, you made a point of it, Brian, in the fight, obviously against Dillian White, against Vladimir Klitschko, against Povetkin, and against Pulev. We've seen that AJ does have a second wind, but in all of those fights, we've seen that there is a bit of vulnerability about him in those middle rounds. Now, I only feel that the vulnerability and the need to get that second wind will come in if Daniel Dubois presses from the first bell. In doing so, he may walk onto something. AJ is a great counterpuncher. But if he can wear him down to the point where in those sort of 5th, 6th rounds, AJ's having to really dig deep, then I do believe that Daniel Dubois definitely has the ability, and in my opinion, also the mental ability going into this fight to really try and seize that opportunity and take that chance.
See, I was looking for something from Daniel Dubois and the Hrgović fight, and I did see it, which impressed me. I think I mentioned it to you guys. It's off the clinch. When you step off and then he's first to throw the punch, he's first to land. Now, in that moment, if the only way I really can see him doing this is turn this into a fight where the pace is horrible, turn it into a stinker, really. For it to go his way, he can't let AJ be fighting in a rhythm that suits himself. There has to be a lot of grappling. There has to be a lot of literally slow it down. But on the slow down, you step out and throw the hook. If you can land, if he's getting that luck and landing, it's that lucky shot, that temple shot that we're looking for, where AJ's losing equilibrium, similar to what we saw from Nari's one. But he has to commit. He just has to. The best thing they can do is step in. If he steps in without, obviously there's a lot of. AJ has punch variation where he has the lovely uppercut that he can throw at a whim, or you step into a straight, and that's a horrible shot. But if he gets in this, and I give him slowed minor chances and holds and grapples and lands off the break, fantastic. But then that's what he has to do, though. I don't know.
Okay. I'll make my final question just so I can really gauge where you're at in your head. Percentage-wise, what percent are you giving Dubois? I'll start with Loza, because I think I already heard you on your own channel.
Yeah, well, I did say 80-20. This was a good few months ago. And then when I'd done a video with Joey, I kind of agreed with it. But as it's coming round, I'm giving him a little bit more of a chance. I think I'm going more along like the 70-30. I think that's the only chance I can really give him, because all I can see is I keep on trying to make cases for Dubois, but I just think in every department, AJ is just better, and I think he gets the job done. So I don't give him much of a chance, I'm honest.
Cool. All right, KJ, what about you, mate?
15%. The more we've spoken today, has made up my mind. Honestly, I'm looking at all the different ways, and I see this fight finishing early. I'm sorry to say it, guys. I see this fight finishing really early. It's when you reminded me of the Lorena fight and stuff. There's too many. AJ's just way too powerful. He has too much to offer. Plus, you're talking about Wembley. Yes, he doesn't have the demons, but that's not easy. I just see it just feels like a tall order with the corner. No, 15%.
So we got 15, we got 30. Where's Joey at? Because you might be higher.
I'd give Daniel Dubois a 40% chance in this fight. I make AJ a favourite, but I don't make him a sizable favourite of any of you guys do. I think that if we were in a lighter weight division here, I would give AJ more of a high percentage here. Mm-hmm. But I do think at heavyweight, the power is so significant that I think it elevates Daniel Dubois' chance massively in this one. I would say 40% would still be a fair one for Daniel Dubois, because I think when I look at the skill set, I do believe that the edge there, and maybe a clear edge, lies with Anthony Joshua. But I just think that in boxing, what have you done for me lately is hugely, hugely important. And going off the back of these last few performances, I think that this is the hardest fight we've seen Anthony Joshua in with since Usyk. And for that reason, I have to give Daniel Dubois a real fair crack of the whip here.
I mean, look, just to piggyback off that, if I was going to give Dubois a push, I would say, how many punches has AJ fought? who can fuck with Daniel Dubois' power. Like, his power is right up there. Maybe one of the hardest punchers AJ's ever faced, probably. So that's why this is so fucking exciting. Don't forget, everyone, we are going to be live from Wembley for Riyadh season. Wembley edition is going to be insane. The link for the pay-per-view is in the description below.
Gonna be
me and the lads. Oh, it's going to be crazy.
It's going to be, and people, listen, I've said 15%. I've gone out on a whim. If I'm wrong, into the comments, you be there live telling me, you idiot, in your face, how dare you? And I'm here for it. Throw the arrows at me, but I know, I'm confident. Make sure you're there, man. Have to pull up.
All right. Can't wait for it, lads. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.